What's going on, at best you can tell, in New Orleans? A PUP list designation, it seems, to start things off for Michael Thomas. Thought maybe an ankle injury, he'd be able to just come back and go. Alvin Kamara, what happened at the Pro Bowl? Where does that all stand for a team that does have Dennis Allen? And, is Jameis going to be ready? I mean, this team could be a team with certainly a defense. We had Malcolm Jenkins yesterday doing its usual thing on Tampa, and Brady having a shot maybe at the division, you never know, or completely different. What can you tell me about the Saints?
NFC playoff field wide open beyond the Rams and the Bucks and the Packers. I think those 4 spots up for grab. Now we know the NFC East is going to get one of them, but the wild card spot's wide open. The Saints could be one of them.
Yep.
Or the Saints could fall apart. The Michael Thomas thing, I think he's going to be with the Saints this year. They redid his contract as part of their annual effort to spin straw into salary cap space, and Mickey Loomis is really good at that. But when they redid Thomas's deal, that guaranteed he's going to be part of that team. The question is, when's he finally going to be able to play after an ankle injury that he suffered in garbage time against the Bucks in Week 1 of the 2020 season? Jameis coming back from the torn ACL, they seem to be all in with him. That was a team I was kind of watching for Baker Mayfield and maybe even for Jimmy G, because they were in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes before they re-signed Jameis Winston. Alvin Kamara, I think paid leave is a possibility for him. That doesn't get discussed very often. He's facing felony battery charges. He falls into the category of allegations that can get a guy put on paid leave. He's got a hearing coming up in August. No indication that the charges against him are going to be resolved before the season starts. The Saints are bracing for a 6-game suspension minimum at some point. But before we even get to that, if these criminal charges are pending and the NFL doesn't like to take action until the criminal case is over, he could end up on paid leave. That's something to keep an eye on. So things could go a lot of different ways for the Saints this year. They could be really, really good, or it could all just fall apart. And they're going to be one of the more fascinating stories to watch. Because, 4-0 against the Buccaneers in the regular season with Tom Brady over the last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's a team and a scenario that just doesn't get much run and not a lot of conversation. You could make a case that Sean Payton's future gets more run than some of what's being discussed about the Saints. And he's gonna have an interesting year, Sean, right? I mean, there's some teams that came out that are apparently associated on his wish list, and there's some established coaches in those places.
Well, he made the comment to Jared Bell the other day that there'll be 6 openings or so, and then that's when you have an idea of how things are going to go. Here's the reality. Sometime after Halloween, close to Thanksgiving, the bad teams are going to know who they are, and the owners who are ready to make a change are going to be thinking, how do I upgrade? And I know this flies in the face of multiple NFL rules, tampering rule, Rooney rule. They don't want teams, number one, they don't want owners to know who they're going to hire before they even fire the guy that they have. And number two, they don't want teams to be talking to people who are under contract with other organizations in a way that doesn't mesh with the rules. And the rules are that you have to approach the Saints and work out a deal with the Saints for permission to even talk to Payton. And once you work out a deal with the Saints for compensation, then you're allowed to talk to Payton. But the reality is, the way things really work, somebody's going to reach out to Payton through back channels, intermediaries, before the end of the season. Somebody's going to know what Payton wants to be the coach, what the Saints want by way of compensation. Everybody will keep their mouths shut. Otherwise, you end up on the radar screen and you get charged with violations of multiple rules. And then it all starts to play out after the season ends. Somebody's going to get fired. They're going to go through a search, and then we're going to hear, the Saints are talking to insert name of team for possible permission to negotiate with Sean Payton. By the time we hear that, the deal will already have been done.
The deal will already have been done.
And watch Dallas. I know Jerry Jones does not want us to pay attention. Playmakers, one of the chapters, talks about how Payton was a done deal in Dallas. It was going to happen. They just needed to activate the process, which would have been, number one, fire Jason Garrett, number two, do your search, and then number three, go to the Saints and do a deal for Payton. That was going to happen. I don't know if we talked about it on your show before, but that was the Anthony Davis wrinkle when he was playing for the Pelicans and Mickey Loomis was the head of the basketball operations there. Mm-hmm. Davis, January 28 of 2019, makes it known he wants out, And that's when the Saints decided, and Loomis specifically decided, I can't be the guy who's responsible for both Davis and Sean Payton leaving. Or Payton would have been the coach of the Cowboys in 2019. And earlier this year, if Brian Flores doesn't file his lawsuit, Payton would have been the coach of the Miami Dolphins. And all of it is set up behind the scenes before we ever even know it's a possibility.
Wow. Damn.